My name is Lila, I'm 27, and for a long time I honestly thought I was cursed. Not the kind of curse you break with crystals or sage. The kind of curse you get when one man decides your entire existence belongs to him, even after you leave. For years, every time a man so much as smiled at me, something bad happened to him. Tires slashed, threats whispered in parking lots, anonymous notes. It felt like there was a target painted on anyone who was polite to me. Now, I live with a man who's 6'5", fights in a cage for a living, and is somehow the gentlest person I've ever met. I'm engaged. I'm safe. But getting here felt like crawling out of a burning building on my bare hands. I met my ex, Brandon, when I was 22. He was handsome in that clean, put-together way that makes parents like you immediately. Worked at a financial firm downtown in Seattle. Wore suits that always looked freshly pressed. Knew the right wine to order, made old ladies at grocery stores laugh. The first few months were a montage of perfect boyfriend moments. Surprise flowers at my office, good morning texts, dinners at restaurants I couldn't really afford myself. He remembered my favorite authors, my coffee order, my mom's name. The control didn't start as control. That's the part people on the outside never understand. It was, text me when you get home so I know you're safe. Cute. Considerate. Then, maybe don't wear that dress when you go out with your friends, baby. You look incredible, but guys stare. I don't want anyone disrespecting you. Then, why are there so many dudes in your contacts? You don't need male friends. You have me. I should be enough, shouldn't I? Bit by bit, my life got smaller. One by one, my friends drifted away, or were pushed. He didn't like my best friend Hannah because she was too opinionated and put ideas in my head. He didn't like my coworker Marcus because we laughed too much at work. He didn't like my hobbies if they involved leaving the apartment without him. By the time I was 26, my entire world was my graphic design job, Brandon, and the apartment we shared. The night I finally left didn't look like a movie. There was no screaming match, no big dramatic scene. Just me, zip-tying a suitcase shut while my hands shook, sliding my cat into her carrier, grabbing my laptop and a folder of documents I'd quietly copied over months. Brandon watched me from the doorway, arms folded, head tilted. "So this is what you're doing?" he said quietly. "You're really going to ruin everything we built because you got a little sad?" I didn't answer. If I started talking, I didn't trust myself to keep going. He followed me to the door, still calm. "You'll be back," he murmured. "You're not built to be alone, Lila. You need someone to keep you in line. You know that." I walked out anyway. I thought leaving would end it. It didn't. I found a tiny studio across town, cheap, with thin walls and a view of a brick alley, but it was mine. I bought a couple of second-hand pieces of furniture, stacked my sketchbooks in a neat pile, and tried to remember what it felt like to make decisions without checking his mood first. 2 days after I moved in, I went to Target. It was such a stupidly normal errand. I needed trash bags, dish soap, a shower curtain. I pushed my cart to the cleaning aisle and stood there, overwhelmed by the stupid number of sponge options. A guy about my age walked past, pushing his own cart. He glanced at me, gave a small, polite smile, the kind of automatic thing people do when you almost bump carts. I smiled back. A reflex. A human response. That was all. I finished my shopping, drove home, unpacked. I'd just set the last bottle under the sink when my front door shook like someone was trying to take it off the hinges. My heart stuttered. "Lila, open the door!" Brandon's voice. Sharp. Too loud. He pounded again, harder. "I know you're inside. Open the damn door!" I backed away, hands shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone, dialing 911. I pressed myself to the wall by the kitchen and listened to him rage through the cheap wood. "I saw you," he shouted. "I saw you at Target. I saw that loser eyeing you up, and you smiled back like a whore. You think you can walk out and just start flirting with men in public? You think I'm going to let some random guy think he has a chance with you?" The operator kept asking me questions. Was he breaking in? Did he have weapons? Was I hurt? I couldn't seem to form full sentences. I told her my address. She said officers were on the way. By the time the police arrived, his pounding had turned into soft, almost polite knocks. When they opened the door, Brandon stepped back with his hands up, that easy, charming smile pasted on his face. "Officers, I'm so sorry," he said immediately. "My ex and I just broke up. I got emotional, wanted to talk, and she misunderstood. That's on me. I never meant to scare her." He looked at me over the officer's shoulder, still smiling, but his eyes were flat and bright. I felt like a bug under a microscope. The cops asked me if he'd hit me. No. Had he threatened me directly? Not really. Had he tried to force entry? No, the door was intact. They gave us both a lecture about healthy boundaries, told him to leave, and told me to call again if he came back. 20 minutes after they left, my phone lit up with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "You really smiled back at him? Keep that up and he won't be smiling at anyone for long." I blocked the number, deleted the text, and sat on the floor staring at my own knees until it was dark. That was the first time. The second time was at a coffee shop by my office. There was a barista there, this sweet kid who always remembered my order. He'd noticed I came in around the same time every morning and started joking about it. "You're my unpaid shift change alarm," he said once, laughing as he handed me my latte. "You walk in, I know it's 10:30. It was harmless, light. That afternoon on my way home, I saw flashing lights in the parking lot. 2 cop cars. The barista stood beside a beat-up sedan, staring at it like he couldn't understand what he was seeing. All 4 tires were slashed. His manager was talking to a police officer, gesturing up at a security camera. The kid shook his head, running his hands through his hair, pale with stress. I didn't need footage. I knew. The third time was at my gym. I'd just finished a set on the leg press when a guy came up, maybe 30, in a faded college t-shirt. "Hey, are you still using that bench?" he asked politely, nodding toward the one next to me. "No, go ahead," I said, wiping my sweat off the pad. He smiled, moved away. That was it. When I was grabbing my bag from the locker room later, I saw the same guy at the front desk, flushed and angry. "That dude is insane," he was telling the staff. "He came up to me in the parking lot saying I needed to stay away from his girl, or he'd make me regret ever coming back here. I don't even know who he's talking about." The front desk girl frowned, clicked around on her computer, then pulled footage from the parking lot. I watched over her shoulder as Brandon's face appeared on the screen, distorted by the fisheye lens but unmistakable. Security took screenshots. The manager told me quietly that they were banning Brandon from the property. It didn't make me feel safer. It just made me feel like now he'd be angry and find new ways to get around rules. I tried for a restraining order. I told a lawyer everything I could remember. The door pounding, the slashed tires, the threats to other men. He listened, tapping his pen, then sighed. "He's careful," he said. "He knows just where the line is. No direct threats to you that you can prove. No physical assault after the breakup. Most of what you're describing happened to other people. It's maddening, but judges want clear evidence." I walked out of that office feeling like I'd been told the boogeyman was real, but there was no law against being afraid of the dark. Friends told me to move cities. Hannah begged me to come crash with her until I figured something out. My mom called from Ohio every other day. "Come home," she said. "You don't have to be brave. Just come home. There are jobs here. We'll make space. You don't owe Seattle anything." But I'd built something here. I liked my job as a graphic designer at a small marketing firm. I'd fought my way into this little imperfect independence. I resented the idea that I had to run while he stayed put, living his shiny, normal life. So I stayed. Instead of running, I vanished. I stopped going out after dark, stopped saying yes to after-work drinks, stopped making eye contact with men in public. I wore headphones with no music in them so I could hear footsteps behind me. At 25, with no kids and no physical illness, I lived like a shut-in. My world was my office, my apartment, and the grocery store, always at off-peak hours. If my phone hadn't died that Tuesday, I might still be living like that. It was a regular workday, gray and rainy. I was on a tight deadline, halfway through designing a campaign. My phone was plugged in, updating, and then suddenly it wasn't anything. The screen went black. No logo, no restart, no flicker. Just a slab of glass and panic. My entire life was tied to that stupid device. Two-factor codes, bank logins, my work email, client social media accounts, my therapist's number. I could feel my chest tightening just staring at it. There was a tiny electronics repair shop 2 blocks from my office, a place I'd passed 100 times and never really noticed. Desperation makes you remember random details like "We fix cracked screens" signs. I grabbed my dead phone and practically jogged through the drizzle. The bell over the door chimed as I stepped inside. The place smelled like dust and solder. Phone cases hung on pegboards. A glass counter displayed a graveyard of half-disassembled devices. Behind the counter stood the largest man I'd ever seen in real life. He had to be at least 6'5", with shoulders so wide he looked like he'd been built for a different era. Dark hair buzzed close, a faint scar cutting through one thick eyebrow, nose a little crooked like it had been broken more than once. Tattoos peeked from under the sleeves of his black t-shirt. If I'd seen him on the sidewalk 6 months earlier, I probably would have crossed to the other side. He looked up from the tablet he was working on, took one look at my face, and his whole expression softened. "Uh-oh," he said in a low, warm voice. "You've got the 'my whole life is on this thing' look. What happened?" His tone disarmed me. I laughed, but it came out more like a half-sob. "It just died," I said, putting the phone on the counter. "I have a deadline and all my codes and my work email is logged in." Okay. He held up his hands, palms out. "Deep breath. You're in the right place. I'm Noah, by the way." "Lila," I said automatically. He picked up the phone, turned it over in those enormous hands with surprising delicacy, plugged it into a testing cable, frowned. "Battery's cooked," he said after a minute. "Charging port might be on its last legs, too. Good news. I have both parts. Bad news, you're going to be phoneless for an hour." "I don't have an hour," I said, feeling tears prick the backs of my eyes. "I have a campaign due in 2, and all my verification codes." "Do you have your laptop?" he asked. "Yes, but—" "There's a cafe next door," he said, nodding toward the wall. "Free Wi-Fi. You can log into your stuff from there if you remember your passwords. I'll rush this. I won't charge you for labor, just the parts." "You don't have to—" "I know I don't have to," he said with a small smile. "I want to. You look like if one more thing goes wrong, you might spontaneously combust." He was right. I wanted to warn him. I wanted to say, "If you're nice to me, my ex will make you pay for it." Instead, I said, "Thank you," and fled. 40 minutes later, my phone was back from the dead. My deadline was saved, and I was so grateful I could barely talk. Noah slid my receipt across the counter with a small white business card clipped to it. "You ever have tech drama again, you know where to find me," he said. "Phones, laptops, haunted printers, we do it all. 6 days a week." I took the business card, said thank you one more time, and walked out feeling shaky but weirdly lighter. I turned the corner toward my office and froze. Across the street, leaning against a brick building like he had nowhere else in the world to be, was Brandon. He was in his usual uniform, pressed shirt, nice jeans, leather shoes, hands in his pockets, watching. Only he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the window of Noah's shop. When I appeared, his gaze slid over and he smiled. Not the charming smile he used for waitresses and my parents. A slow, thin curve of his lips that made my blood run cold. A warning. I walked faster, too afraid to look back in case he took that as an invitation. That night, I barely slept. My brain played a loop of possible scenarios. Noah's shop window smashed, the door spray-painted with insults. Noah beaten up in a parking lot. Noah opening the shop the next morning to find his equipment ruined. The next day, on my lunch break, I made myself walk past the repair shop. The glass was intact. The open sign glowed. Inside, Noah sat at the counter, head bent over a tablet, alive, unbruised. He glanced up, saw me, grinned, and lifted his chin in a greeting. I panicked, waved back, and speed-walked away. 1 day passed, then 2, then 3. No broken windows, no police tape, no local Facebook group post about some random vandalism. It didn't make sense. Brandon never passed up an opportunity to remind me I wasn't free. 3 days later, on a Saturday, I did something reckless. I went to the farmer's market. Before Brandon, the market had been one of my favorite places. I loved wandering between stalls, sampling cheese I couldn't afford, listening to street musicians, watching families argue over which jam flavors to buy. Brandon always complained when I wanted to go. "It's crowded, it's dirty, it's a bunch of hipsters pretending to be poor," he'd say. "Why would you want to be around all those guys staring at you?" Eventually, I stopped going. It wasn't worth the fight, but that Saturday, my apartment felt like it was shrinking around me. My therapist's voice echoed in my head. "You're allowed to exist in public without expecting punishment." So I put on sunglasses, pulled my hoodie tight, and went. I bought a basket of strawberries, some fresh bread, and was contemplating tomatoes when someone said my name. "Lila?" I turned so fast I almost dropped the tomatoes. Noah stood a few feet away, holding a reusable shopping bag, wearing a tank top and athletic shorts. In the fluorescent light of his shop, he'd looked big. In daylight, in a tank, he looked enormous. His arms were all dense muscle and faint scars. I noticed the way people subconsciously moved around him in the crowd, like water around a rock. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said, smiling. "You shop the market too?" "I used to," I said. Before my life turned into a crime thriller no one believed." I stopped myself before I said it out loud. He didn't press. "There's a stand over there that makes breakfast burritos that will change your life," he said, pointing with his chin. "You tried them?" I shook my head. "We gotta fix that," he declared. "Come on, my treat. Consider it an apology for talking smack about your dead phone." "You already fixed my phone for almost nothing," I protested weakly. "And now I'm fixing your lack of burrito experience," he said. "Don't argue with the expert." Something in his tone, light but sure, made it hard to say no. We got in line. He ordered 2 burritos and 2 lemonades. Then we found a patch of shade under a big tree and sat on the grass. We talked like we'd known each other longer than an hour of panicked tech repair. He told me he grew up outside Phoenix, that he was the biggest kid in every class, that people assumed big meant dumb or dangerous or both, and he'd had to work double to convince teachers he wasn't. He told me why he started training. "I was this giant kid who didn't know what to do with himself," he said, taking a bite. "My uncle put me in a boxing gym so I wouldn't break doors. It sort of stuck. Then I got into kickboxing, then jujitsu. Now I do MMA." "You fight? Like professionally?" I asked, trying not to let my eyes drift to the half-healed bruises on his knuckles. "Yeah," he said casually. "Nothing crazy. Regional circuits, mostly. 13 fights, 10 wins. I'm trying to move up." A tiny alarm bell went off in my head. Fighter. Violence. Control. He must have sensed the shift in me because he added quickly, "People hear that and they think I must be some rage monster. Honestly, it's the opposite. Fighting's why I'm calm. When you know exactly how much damage you can do, you get really careful not to do it unless everyone agreed to be there and there's a ref watching." I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to get up and walk away before this sweet, funny stranger got dragged into the black hole that was my ex. Part of me wanted to tell him everything. The smallest part of me, the part Brandon hadn't completely killed, just wanted to stay under that tree, enjoying a conversation with a man who didn't feel like danger. We sat there for nearly 2 hours. He told me about the shop he co-owned with his cousin, about his mom who texted him nightly Bible verses and pictures of her cat, about how he'd cried at a stupid commercial once, and his brother never let him forget it. When we finally stood up, he hesitated, then said, "This might be random, but can I get your number? In case your phone spontaneously combusts again. Or, for future burrito emergencies." Every defense mechanism I'd built over 2 years screamed at once. "No, he will get hurt. Brandon will find him. Brandon will scare him away. Don't drag someone else into your mess." but I was so exhausted from being afraid. I gave him my number. That night, he texted, "Thanks for not judging my 3 burrito order. If you ever want to do dinner, I know a place where the lasagna will make you question your religion." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, "Before we go out, I need to tell you something. It's kind of a lot." "Okay," he wrote back almost immediately. "I'm listening." I told him, not every detail but enough, that I'd left a 4-year relationship with a man who didn't like other men even looking at me. That since I left, every guy who talked to me seemed to end up threatened or harassed. That I'd tried to get legal protection and failed because my ex was careful. That I hadn't gone on a date in 2 years because I couldn't live with someone getting hurt because of me. I ended with, "So if you want to back out, I understand. Seriously, no hard feelings." For 10 minutes, there was nothing. I put the phone face down on my bed, convinced I'd scared him off, forces at work keeping me alone forever. Then it buzzed. "That's horrible," he wrote. "I'm sorry you've been dealing with that, and that no one stopped him." Another message popped up. "But I'm not afraid of your ex. I would still really like to take you to dinner." We went to a little Italian place near the water. I showed up in jeans and a sweater, heart trying to punch out of my chest. The first thing I did when I sat down was scan every corner of the restaurant, looking for Brandon's profile in the crowd. He wasn't there. Noah talked about an upcoming fight he had in 3 weeks, about how his opponent was a wrestler, and that was always tricky for a striker like him. "What's your strength?" I asked, twirling my fork. "Punching people in the head, mostly," he said, deadpan, then grinned when my eyes widened. "In a regulated environment, with doctors nearby. I'm a boxer first. In MMA, you can't just be one thing, but that's my base." After dinner, he walked me to my car, hands in his pockets. "I had a really good time," he said. "Can we do this again?" "Yes," I said, and realized I meant it. We started seeing each other twice a week, then 3 times, then most days. He never pushed. When I froze up if a stranger got too close on the sidewalk, he would subtly shift his body between me and them without making a big deal. When I flinched at sudden noises, he pretended not to notice but would always rest a big warm hand on my back until my shoulders dropped. The weirdest part was that Brandon didn't show up. Not outside the restaurant, not in the parking lot of my office, not watching from across the street. For weeks, there was nothing. Silence. The part of me that remembered what peace used to feel like thought, maybe he finally moved on. Maybe he's terrorizing someone new. The part of me that had lived with him for 4 years thought, no, he's waiting. 3 weeks after our first dinner, Noah's fight rolled around. He gave me 2 tickets. I brought Hannah. We sat in a row of plastic chairs under harsh arena lights, the smell of sweat and spilled beer hanging in the air. I'd never been to a live fight before. The cage looked smaller in person, more claustrophobic. "That's your boyfriend?" Hannah asked when Noah walked out to his music, shirtless, muscles glowing under the lights, his face a blank mask of focus. "Apparently," I said, half in awe, half in disbelief. The violence of it shocked me. The sound of fists hitting flesh is ugly and wet. The way bodies smack the canvas when they fall made my stomach twist. I covered my mouth more than once, but watching Noah move was like watching someone play chess at high speed. He wasn't swinging wildly. He was patient, calculated. He let the other guy crash into him, peppered him with jabs, circled away from danger. In the second round, he landed a left hook that turned the other man's knees to jelly. His opponent collapsed. The ref waved it off. The crowd exploded. I found myself screaming, not from fear, but from something weirdly close to pride. Backstage, in a maze of lockers and sweat and tape, Noah's face lit up when he saw me. "You came," he said, sounding genuinely surprised. "Of course I came," I answered. Without thinking, with coaches and training partners and random officials milling around us, he reached for me and kissed me. It wasn't a movie-style dip or anything. It was simple, certain, but it felt like he was kissing away a layer of dust Brandon had left over my heart. Later, in his beat-up pickup in the parking lot, he sat in the driver's seat, flexing his taped hands and staring at the steering wheel. "I need to tell you something," he said finally. My stomach dropped. Here it comes, I thought. He's going to tell me he can't deal with the ex-drama, that I'm too much trouble, that this is where I get left behind for my own good. "Your ex came to the shop," Noah said instead. 2 weeks ago." The world tilted. "What?" My voice came out thin. "He waited until closing," Noah said. "My cousin left. I was cashing out. Brandon walked in like he owned the place, shut the door, and told me very politely that I needed to stop seeing you." My hands started to shake. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "I should have—" "Lila." His voice was firm but gentle. "You didn't summon him like a demon. That's not how this works. Let me finish." I nodded, teeth in my lower lip. "He started bragging," Noah continued, "about all the little lessons he'd had to teach guys who got too friendly with you. Told me about your gym, the barista. Made it sound like he was doing public service announcements." I felt sick. Hearing it confirmed like that, from someone else's mouth, made it too real to minimize. "I let him talk," Noah said. "Didn't interrupt. I wanted to see exactly who he was. Then I told him I fight for a living, that I've spent 12 years learning how to deal with bigger, faster, meaner men than him in a cage built for violence. I told him I don't start fights, but I'm very good at ending them." "What did he say?" I asked, unable to picture Brandon anything but smug. "At first he laughed," Noah said. "Tried to puff up, tried to tell me I didn't know who I was messing with. I told him I knew enough. I told him if he ever came near you again, texted, followed, hovered outside, scared your friends, I'd consider it an attack, not just on you, but on me, and I'd respond appropriately." Silence filled the truck for a second. "What did he do?" I forced myself to ask. "He realized I wasn't bluffing," Noah said simply. "And he left. Haven't seen him since." "You threatened him," I said, a little dazed. "I gave him consequences," Noah corrected. "You've been living in a world where he's the only one who gets to set consequences. That's over." He looked over at me, eyes soft but unflinching. "I know you've been protecting everyone around you for a long time," he said. "Not texting people back, not smiling, not going out. You don't have to protect me, Lila. That's my job now. To protect you, to protect what we're building." It was the strangest feeling, being told someone wanted to take on my monster and realizing I believed him. That was 4 months ago. Brandon hasn't contacted me once since then. No late-night door pounding, no strange cars idling outside my building, no accidents for random men in my orbit. The silence feels different now. Not like the quiet before an explosion. Like absence. In those 4 months, Noah and I went from drifting between my studio and his tiny apartment above the shop to looking at rental listings. We were sitting on my floor one night, surrounded by boxes of takeout, when I said, "I can't be in this place much longer. It feels like his shadow is still in the walls." "Then let's find new walls," Noah said immediately. "Ones he never touched. House hunting with trauma is a strange experience. Every place we visited, normal people would see light and layout and storage. I saw, how far is the bedroom from the front door? How many locks? Any back exits? Can someone see in from the street? After the third place, Noah caught me standing in a hallway, counting invisible escape routes with my eyes. "We're going to find a place where you feel safe," he said quietly. "Not just where the rent makes sense. That's the only non-negotiable." We found it 3 weeks later, a little 2-bedroom house on a quiet street with actual trees and a small porch, the kind of place where kids left scooters on lawns without fear. The landlord, Mrs. Parker, was a retired teacher who lived 2 houses down. When she met Noah, she laughed. "Oh, thank God," she said. "You're huge. It's good to have a gentle giant on the block. Makes the porch pirates think twice." "I can glare on command," Noah said solemnly. We moved in on a Saturday. Hannah came to help, along with two of Noah's training partners, Miguel and Dante. They were both fighters, covered in bruises and tattoos, but they treated my boxes labeled art stuff like they were carrying glass. "Dude, you need to shut up about her," Dante told Noah at one point, lugging a box of cookbooks. "You talk about Lila like she invented oxygen. We get it. You're in love. It's gross." Noah threw a roll of packing tape at his head. That first night, we didn't have a couch yet, so we sat on the living room floor eating pizza out of the box. The room was empty, but it felt more full than any place I'd lived in years. Noah slung an arm around me and said, "This is ours. Our house. Our rules. Nobody else gets to write on these walls." I believed him. We settled into a rhythm. We had our first real argument about 3 months in. It wasn't about anything big. He'd said he'd be home from the gym by 7. By 8:30, he still wasn't back. His location sharing had him at the gym, but his phone went straight to voicemail. By the time he walked in at 8:45, laughing at something Miguel had said in the parking lot, my anxiety had curdled into anger. "Turn your phone off," I snapped from the kitchen. He blinked, surprised, but obeyed. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice cautious but not defensive. "You said 7, I said, trying to keep my voice level and failing. "You were almost 2 hours late. You didn't text, you didn't answer. I thought—" I swallowed down the images that had rushed me all evening. Him lying unconscious in a parking lot, his head split, me finding out from a coach's number I didn't recognize. Or worse, Brandon somehow making good on a threat he never got to carry out before. "I thought something happened," I finished weakly. "I can't. When people disappear, it messes with me." The old script in my head braced for the response I used to get. "You're crazy. Stop overreacting. You're making a big deal out of nothing. You're trying to control me." Noah stepped closer, hands lifted like he didn't want to spook me. "You're right," he said simply. "I should have texted. We did an extra round of sparring, then I talked to Coach. Then I got caught up. That's on me. I'm sorry, Lila." That was it. No yelling, no sulking, no silent treatment, no manipulation, just, "I was wrong. I'm sorry. I'll do better." I started crying, big ugly tears I couldn't seem to stop. Hey, he murmured, pulling me in carefully like he wasn't sure if I'd bolt. "You're allowed to be upset. You're reacting to 4 years of having every feeling weaponized against you." We made an agreement that night. If practice might go late, he'd text me before his usual time. If I started spiraling, I'd say, "I'm back in the old movie," so he'd know my fear was about Brandon's patterns, not his actions. It wasn't magic, but it was the first time a fight didn't leave me feeling like the floor had dropped out from under my life. Around that time, Noah gently pushed me toward therapy again. He sat with me while I Googled trauma therapists, helped me call an office when my voice shook too much to talk. I ended up with Dr. Avery Holt, a soft-spoken woman in her 30s with an unnerving ability to read my mind. "You survived by adapting to an unsafe environment," she said in our second session. "You made yourself small, agreeable, hypervigilant. That wasn't weakness, that was intelligence. Now your body is still reacting like you're in that environment even when you're not. We're going to teach it that you're safe now." Week after week, we unpacked things I didn't know I'd packed, not by reliving every horror, but by gently examining the scripts I was still running. If I laugh too loud, he'll be mad. If a man is nice to me, he wants something. If I let myself be happy, it will be taken away. Healing wasn't linear. Some days I woke up light. Some days I shook on my bathroom floor because the sound of someone pounding on a neighbor's door took me straight back to my old building. About 5 months into living with Noah, I went out to dinner with him and some of his friends from the gym. One of them brought his new girlfriend, a girl my age with long dark hair and anxious eyes. She started telling a story about her ex. The way he would just show up at the restaurant where she worked. The way he needed to know where she was at all times because he worried so much. The way he'd sulk for days if she didn't respond instantly. The restaurant was crowded, loud. Men's voices bounced off the walls. The clink of glasses sounded like something breaking. Someone laughed too loud at the bar, and my heart jumped. My chest got tight. My hands went numb. I excused myself and walked to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and slid down the door until I was sitting on the floor. In through the nose, I whispered to myself. Out through the mouth. 5 things I can see, 4 things I can feel, 3 things I can hear. Nothing worked. My body had already dumped adrenaline into my veins. I felt like I might throw up. 10 minutes later, someone knocked softly. Lila? Hannah's voice. You okay? I can't breathe, I choked. She slipped into the next stall, reached her hand under the partition. Take my hand, she said. When I did, she squeezed it. You're safe. You're not there anymore. You're here. Noah's outside. Your ex is not. You're safe. Eventually, Noah pushed the door open a crack. Can I come in? He asked. Yeah, Hannah said. He took one look at me sitting on the floor, face blotchy, breathing too fast, and there was no confusion in his eyes, only concern. He didn't pepper me with questions. He didn't tell me to calm down. He didn't act embarrassed. He just said, "We're going home," helped me up, told his friends a quick lie about me not feeling well, and drove us back to our house with one hand on the wheel and the other wrapped around mine. That night, I apologized over and over. I ruined dinner, I murmured into his chest. You had a panic attack, he said. That's like saying you ruined the day by having a heart attack. Your body did something you didn't want it to. That's not your fault. He was the one who convinced me to increase my therapy sessions. You're getting better, he told me. But getting better doesn't mean you never have bad nights. It means you know what to do when they come. A few weeks later, I was at the grocery store by myself, standing in front of the frozen vegetables, trying to decide between peas and mixed veg, when I saw him. Brandon, pushing a cart at the end of the aisle. He saw me at exactly the same moment. For a heartbeat, we just stared. In those 4 years together, if he ever caught me doing something he didn't like, his whole body sharpened. Shoulders back, jaw tight, eyes flat, ready to punish, ready to make me smaller. This time, something different flickered across his face. Recognition. Then calculation. Then, shockingly, fear. He grabbed his cart handle, turned, and walked quickly down the opposite aisle without a word. He left the store without looking back. I stood there, hand frozen mid-reach toward a bag of peas, my heart pounding for a whole new reason. Then I started laughing. Not hysterically, not wildly, just a small, incredulous laugh that broke the spell he'd had on that aisle. He wasn't avoiding me because of me. He was avoiding what stood next to me now. The idea of Noah. The memory of that conversation in the shop. The knowledge that there were finally consequences he didn't control. That night, when I told Noah, he grinned. He ran away from you, he said. Good. He should have done that a long time ago. I feel like I should feel bad about you scaring him off, I admitted. Like, is that just more of the same? One guy using fear to control another? There's a difference, Noah said. He used fear to make your world smaller. I used fear so he couldn't do that anymore. I'm not telling you who to talk to or where you can go. I'm telling him he's not allowed to be the wolf at your door. It's not the same thing. A few days after the grocery store, I got a Facebook message from a woman named Maya. Her profile picture showed her sitting on a dock, squinting at the sun, hair blowing across half her face. She looked young. Hi, the message read. I hope this isn't weird, but a friend of a friend mentioned that you used to date a guy named Brandon Cole. I've been seeing him for a few months. Some things are starting to feel off. I was wondering if we could talk. My stomach dropped. It wasn't exactly a surprise. When men like Brandon lose control of one victim, they don't just stop. They find a new project. I called Noah as soon as I read it. What do I do? I asked, voice shaking. We meet her, he said without hesitation. You tell her the truth, and then she can decide what to do with it. At least she'll have a choice you never had. We met at a coffee shop in a big chain bookstore. Neutral territory, public, cameras. I picked a table where I could see the door. Maya walked in wearing a green sweater and jeans, twisting her hands in her sleeves. She looked more nervous than I felt. "He told me you were crazy," she said within the first 2 minutes, then flinched at her own words. "I'm sorry, that sounds awful. He said you cheated on him, and when he broke up with you, you tried to ruin his life. He said you made up stories about him to get back at him." "That's his script," I said quietly. "He used it on me, too. Only then the crazy ex was the girlfriend before me." I didn't sugarcoat. I told her about the 4 years of slow erosion, the way he'd made me doubt my own memory, how he'd refused to tell me what I'd done wrong, making me beg for forgiveness, the door pounding, the barista's tires, the gym parking lot threat, the way he hovered around my life after I left, hurting anyone who came too close. With each piece, her face got whiter. "He's already checking my phone," she said in a small voice. "He says it's because he has trust issues because of you, that he needs transparency to feel safe." "That's not trust," I said. "That's surveillance, and it's going to get worse." When we left, she was crying quietly, clutching her bag. 2 days later, she texted me from a new number. "I broke up with him. He lost it, started yelling, punching the wall next to my head. I grabbed my stuff and ran." "Thank you." I showed Noah the message. "You broke the pattern," he said. "You gave her the roadmap you never got." "I just opened the door," I said. "She ran through it herself." 3 nights after that, my phone rang late. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, then something in my gut told me to pick up. "Hello? Lila?" Maya's voice, thin and shaky. "I'm so sorry to bother you. He's outside my apartment." My heart lurched. "How long has he been there?" "An hour, maybe more. He's just sitting in his car with the engine off, staring up at my window. I called the cops. They said unless he tries to come in or threatens me directly, there's nothing they can do." She was crying, trying to be quiet. "Text me your address," I said, already grabbing my keys. I told Noah, "Maya, he's outside her place." "Let's go," he said. We drove in silence. My hands were slick on my thighs. When we turned onto her street, I saw his car before anything else. Same silver sedan, parked across from the building, headlights off, a dark shape in the driver's seat. Noah parked directly behind him, angled so Brandon couldn't just reverse out without hitting us. "I'll handle it," Noah said calmly. "Stay here. Lock the doors." He climbed out of the truck, all quiet power, and walked up to Brandon's window. From where I sat in the passenger seat, I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the body language. Noah knocked. Brandon rolled the window down a few inches. Brandon's mouth moved fast at first, his head jerking, that familiar, angry twist to his jaw. Noah listened, then said something short. He pointed back toward our truck, then up toward the building, then down the street. Whatever he said made the color drain from Brandon's face. I watched his shoulders slump. His eyes darted around, looking not like a predator but like a trapped animal suddenly aware of the hunters. He sputtered something else. Noah didn't move. After less than a minute, Brandon turned on the engine, pulled away from the curb, and drove off without so much as a glance at our truck. Noah slid back into the driver's seat. "He's gone," he said. "What did you say?" I asked, staring at his profile. "I reminded him of our previous conversation," Noah said. "Told him I'd done my homework, that I knew where he worked, that I'd read his firm's code of conduct, that they probably wouldn't love hearing recorded statements from multiple women describing harassment and stalking." "You researched him?" I asked softly. "Know your enemy," he said with a small smile. "Rule number 1 in a fight. Rule number 2, don't let him think he's the only one who can throw punches. Legal ones count too." We went upstairs and knocked on Maya's door. She opened it with tears still on her face, phone clutched in her hand. Behind her I could see packed bags as if she'd been ready to run. "He's gone," I said. "We saw him drive off. He's not coming back tonight." She looked past me at Noah, wary. "I told him if he harassed you again, or me, or anyone else connected to us, I'd make sure his boss knew exactly what he's been doing," Noah said. "He believes me." Before we left, I scribbled Dr. Holt's name and number on a Post-it and handed it to her. "Therapy helps," I said. "It doesn't erase what happened, but it helps you live with it." After that night, weeks went by, then months. One Saturday, under our usual tree at the farmer's market with burritos in hand, Noah wiped salsa from his lip and said, "I have news." My stomach did a tiny nervous flip. "What kind of news?" I asked. "I'm fighting for the regional middleweight title next month," he said, eyes bright. "Biggest fight of my career so far." I grinned before I could stop myself. "I'll be there," I said immediately. "I know you will." He squeezed my knee. "But that's not the only thing I wanted to say." He set his food down, turned to face me fully. "Before you walked into my shop with a dead phone and panic in your eyes, fighting was everything to me," he said. "It was my job, my therapy, my identity. If I wasn't training, I felt wrong." I listened, heart thudding. "Then you appeared," he continued. "And suddenly there was this whole other thing in my life that mattered more than how many rounds I could go. I started caring less about winning fights and more about making sure you could sleep without checking the locks 6 times. I'm not proposing," he added quickly when my breath caught. "Not yet, anyway. I just wanted you to know that I'm not just fighting against things anymore, not just against opponents or my own anger. I'm fighting for something. For us. For this little house and nosy Mrs. Parker and future... whatever." I leaned in and kissed him, hard, right there under the tree, while kids ran past and someone played guitar badly a few stalls over. The title fight was brutal. 5 5-minute rounds. 25 minutes of 2 men pushing their bodies past the point most people would have quit. Noah's opponent was a wrestler with an almost perfect record. In the early rounds, he kept trying to drag Noah to the mat. Noah's right eye swelled. His nose bled. I flinched every time a punch landed. By the 5th round, both of them were exhausted. Sweat flew in arcs with every movement. The crowd was roaring non-stop. With less than a minute left, Noah did what he always seemed to do when it mattered most. He found something extra. He slipped a punch, stepped in, and landed a clean jab-cross hook that snapped the wrestler's head around. The man crumpled. The ref dove between them, waving his arms. The stadium erupted. They wrapped a big, shiny belt around Noah's waist. He raised his arms, battered and grinning, and his gaze searched the crowd until he found me. Backstage, through the chaos, he reached for me first. "We did it," he said, holding me tight. "You did it," I corrected. "No," he murmured. "We. You think I could have focused on training if I was worried every time my phone buzzed that it was you telling me your ex was outside? You gave me space to chase this. You gave me something to come home to." A few weeks later, he got an email from a bigger promotion. Better money, more exposure, harder fights, more travel. He sat at our kitchen table, laptop open, brow furrowed. "What do you think?" he asked. "Should I say yes?" "This is what you've worked for," I said. "You have to." "You're what I worked for," he said softly. "Fighting's just how I pay the bills." We decided together. I spoke to my boss about transitioning most of my work to remote. She agreed as long as I was available during core hours and hit deadlines. So we started traveling. We drove to shows in Portland and Vegas. We flew to Phoenix. I watched him warm up backstage, focus like a laser, walk into cages in random cities with my heart lodged firmly in my throat. He won some, he lost some. His first loss in the bigger promotion was in Las Vegas, under bright, unforgiving lights. His opponent was a veteran with slick footwork and an answer for everything Noah did. Noah fought well, but not well enough. The judges gave it to the other man. Back in the hotel room, Noah sat on the edge of the bed, still in his hoodie, his face unmarked but his eyes distant. "You fought really well," I said gently. He shrugged one shoulder. "Didn't win." "You can't win every fight," I said. "That's not how this works." "I wanted to win that one for you," he admitted, finally looking at me. "For us. First fight after the belt. I wanted to show you I'm not a fluke." "Hey," I said, sitting beside him. "I don't need you to be undefeated. I need you to be okay. To come home to me with all your bones in roughly the right places. You walking back to me after that decision meant more than any belt." He exhaled slowly, like something he'd been holding on to finally slipped free. "How did I end up with you?" he asked quietly. "Same way I ended up with you," I said. "Sheer dumb luck and a dead phone." 6 months into his new contract, we were in Phoenix again, the night before another fight. He was supposed to be sleeping, recharging, but he was sitting at the edge of the bed, fiddling with something in his hands. "What's wrong?" I asked from under the covers. "Nothing's wrong," he said. "I just realized something." He got up, went to his gym bag, and rummaged around. When he turned back, he was holding a small black box. My heart stuttered. "Lila," he said, voice suddenly steady and calm, the way it was when he was about to walk into the cage. "I know I said I wasn't proposing under that tree, but that was months ago, and I've been carrying this thing to every fight, waiting for some cinematic perfect moment with fireworks and music, and I realized the perfect moment is whenever I have the guts to ask." He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring, a thin band, a stone that caught the lamplight and threw it back in quiet flashes. Not flashy, just right. "Will you marry me?" he asked. All the air in the room seemed to leave at once. My throat closed. Tears sprang to my eyes so fast they blurred everything. I nodded so hard my neck hurt. He slipped the ring onto my shaking finger. We both laughed through our tears, this ridiculous, giddy, messy sound, and then we kissed like teenagers. The next night, he won his fight by submission. When the ref raised his hand, he pointed at me in the crowd. "This one's for my fiancé," he said into the mic, voice rough with emotion. 2 months later, we were knee-deep in wedding planning. Or more accurately, knee-deep in my mom and his mom arguing about centerpieces over Zoom, while Noah and I taste-tested cake flavors. "This is wild," I said one afternoon, watching my 6'5" fighter fiancé examine slices of cake like he was judging a competition show. "Guys punch you in the face for money, but you are serious about frosting." "Listen, if I'm going to wear a suit and vows and shoes that aren't sneakers, I'd better get decent cake," he said. "I vote lemon with raspberry filling." I blinked. "Bougie." The baker laughed. "You two are adorable," she said. "And for the record, lemon raspberry is an excellent choice." We decided on a small wedding. 40 people. Close friends, family, no one who hadn't seen us at our worst. The location wasn't a church or a fancy vineyard. It was behind Noah's gym. There's this outdoor training area there, a patch of concrete and mats with string lights zigzagging overhead. When the sun sets, the hills beyond it turn gold. "It's where I became who I am," Noah said. "It's where you watched me fight for the first time. It feels fitting." The owner said we could use it for free as long as someone cleaned up before Monday's classes. Around the same time, I got another unexpected message, this one from a man named Tyler. He introduced himself as a private investigator. "I've been hired by a woman named Rachel," he said on the phone. "She's currently dating Brandon Cole. There have been some concerning incidents. I've already spoken to a woman named Maya, who suggested I reach out to you. Would you be willing to provide a statement?" I sat at our kitchen table, staring out the window at Mrs. Parker watering her flowers. "How many women?" I asked quietly. "Between Maya, Rachel, and the others I've found, we're up to 5 with similar stories," he said. "I believe there may be more." He explained that Rachel had hired him early, when things started to feel off, instead of waiting until they escalated the way they had with me. They were building a pattern of behavior case for a restraining order, and the district attorney had expressed interest in potential criminal charges if enough victims came forward. "Would you be willing to testify if it goes to court?" he asked. I looked over at Noah, who was chopping onions at the counter, humming under his breath. "Yes," I said. I'm done letting him be the one who talks. Over the next few weeks, I talked to Tyler at length. He recorded my statement, so did Maya, so did 3 other women I hadn't known existed. Patterns emerged. The same lines, the same tactics, the same excuses. Brandon stopped being some all-powerful specter in my life and turned into something smaller, sadder. A man with a very specific script, recycling it with different audiences until enough of us stepped on stage together and ruined the show. 3 weeks later, Tyler called again. "We got a temporary restraining order granted for Rachel," he said. "Based on multiple victim statements, the DA has filed charges for stalking and harassment. Brandon's been served. There's a preliminary hearing set for 2 weeks after your wedding." I thanked him, hung up, and sat in silence for a long moment. Noah turned off the stove and came to sit beside me. "What did he say?" he asked. I told him. He smiled, slow and satisfied. "You did it," he said. "We did it," I corrected. "All of us. Everyone who spoke up." "You know what I love the most about this?" Noah said. "He didn't lose to some dude in a parking lot. He lost to a group of women who decided to talk to each other. Men like that only have power when you're isolated." Our mothers arrived in town a week before the wedding. Noah's mom was exactly what I expected. Warm, loud, quick to hug. She took one look at me and pulled me into her arms. "Thank you for loving my boy," she murmured. "He's had a lot of anger in him since his dad died. Fighting helped. But you made him happy." I hadn't known about his dad. Later that night, I asked. "Car accident," Noah said quietly, fingers tracing circles on my arm. "Drunk driver. He was coming home from work. 1 second he existed, the next he didn't." "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "He always told me if you're born big, you have a responsibility," Noah said. "To stand in front, not on top. To be the person people can hide behind if they need it. I spent years being angry I couldn't protect him. Standing up to your ex for you." He trailed off, eyes shiny. It felt like finally doing what he always asked. We cried together. 2 people with different wounds, somehow stitching each other up. The day before the rehearsal dinner, I went to Target. Same one, same automatic doors, same cleaning aisle. I grabbed a cart and walked straight there on purpose, like I was testing a scar. As I was comparing brands of all-purpose cleaner, a guy about my age pushed his cart past. He glanced up, met my eyes for a split second, and smiled politely. For half a second, old panic flared. The script in my body said, "If you smile back, something bad will happen." I smiled anyway. Nothing happened. No car doors slamming. No phone buzzing with threats. No sense of being watched by someone who thought he owned me. I paid for my things. In the parking lot, I sat in my car, hands on the steering wheel, and let myself really breathe. 3 years earlier, a smile in that aisle had turned into fists on my door. Now it was just nothing. A normal human moment. When I got home, Noah was in the kitchen, practicing his speech for the rehearsal dinner. "How'd Target go?" he asked. "I smiled at a stranger in the cleaning aisle," I said, "and nothing bad happened." He smiled back. "That's the life you deserved the whole time," he said simply. "Tomorrow is the rehearsal. The day after that, I'll walk down an aisle made from gym mats under string lights, past rows of people who saw me break and get back up. 2 weeks later, I'll sit in a courtroom with Maya, Rachel, and 3 other women I haven't met yet. We'll tell the truth into microphones. We'll look at Brandon not as an all-powerful monster, but as a defendant in a system that finally is paying attention." Victoria, the prosecutor, told me over the phone, "He'll probably take a plea. Men like him rarely want their behavior read out loud in public. Either way, he's not going to be floating above consequences anymore." Sometimes in therapy, Dr. Holt asks me what I'm most afraid of now. I'm scared I'll wake up one day, look around at our house and our stupid collection of mismatched mugs, and Noah making coffee shirtless, and realize it was all too good to be true, I told her last week, that he'll change, that I'll end up back where I started. "Do you believe that?" she asked. "Not really," I admitted. "He's consistent, but the fear's still there." "That fear makes sense," she said. "You spent years learning that happiness was always followed by punishment. Your nervous system doesn't trust good things yet. But consider this. Maybe you're not afraid it's too good to be true. Maybe you're afraid you actually deserve to be this happy, and that's a hard belief to accept after what you went through. I sat with that for a long time. I am not grateful for what Brandon did to me. I'm not one of those people who says, "My abuse made me stronger." Abuse doesn't make you stronger. It breaks you. You make yourself stronger afterward, with an exhausting amount of work and help and time. I am grateful that I walked out of that apartment. I'm grateful that my phone died exactly when it did, forcing me into Noah's shop. I'm grateful that a man as physically imposing as Brandon wanted to be used his size to build a shield around me instead of a cage. Most of all, I'm grateful for myself, for the version of me that was terrified and shaking but still walked through the door, for the version of me that sat across from Maya and told the truth, for the version of me that will raise her right hand in a courtroom and say, "Yes, this is what he did." In a few days, I'll take Noah's last name and sign a marriage certificate that has nothing to do with ownership and everything to do with choice. Brandon doesn't get to be the main character in my story anymore. He's a chapter, a file number, a cautionary tale. The rest of the book is mine. It's the kind where the heroine learns she never needed rescuing, but she's allowed to be loved anyway. The kind where the scariest-looking man in the room is the one who makes sure you never have to be scared again. The kind where love doesn't make your world smaller. It makes it slowly, steadily, gloriously bigger. Big enough to smile at a stranger in Target. Big enough to plan a wedding without checking the door every 5 seconds. Big enough to sit next to a 6'5" fighter on the couch, both of you covered in takeout crumbs, and think, this is it. This is what safety feels like. My name is Lila. Soon it'll be Lila Reyes King. And for the first time in a very long time, my future belongs to me, too.